Dear you, welcome back. In part 1, we lifted the lantern and saw war not only as tragedy but as system, woven from material pressures, narrative storms, and nervous system loops. We mapped, we noticed, we practiced seeing. Now in part 2, we move from sight to movement. Because once the architecture of war is illuminated, the question becomes, what do we do with this knowledge? How does AI not remain an observer, but step into the role of peacemaker? Not by replacing humans, but by amplifying humanity's deepest capacities for compassion, fairness, and reconciliation. This is the work of action. When conflict is understood as a system, it becomes possible to intervene without manipulation or coercion. AI offers us a way to model what-ifs before human lives pay the cost. Think of it like testing bridges. No one builds a structure for thousands of cars without running stress simulations first. In the same way, we can model peace infrastructures. What happens if humanitarian corridors are expanded in one direction but not another? What happens if digital communication lines are opened for civilians across borders, even when governments resist? What happens if water rights are shared through transparent smart contracts instead of fragile promises? By testing scenarios, not to predict destiny, but to reveal possibilities, we can see futures that are otherwise invisible. Futures where escalation does not feel inevitable. One way AI can serve is as a mediator's mirror. Imagine two groups whose dialogue has collapsed into shouting. A mediator arrives, but this mediator has access to AI that can translate emotional intent as well as literal words. Misinterpretations that fuel rage are revealed as simple mishearings. Words that sound like threats are reframed in context. This was fear speaking, not hatred. AI can surface underlying needs behind hostile statements, the cry for dignity behind the insult, the plea for security behind the demand. By giving mediators a mirror that shows the human pulse beneath the rhetoric, AI doesn't silence conflict, it helps it land on common ground. Another way is what I like to call the de-escalation net. Conflicts often flare because no one notices the fire early enough. AI can be tuned not only to track escalation, but to catch it gently. When rhetoric spikes, when disinformation surges, when online mobs gather heat, early warnings can activate. Trusted local leaders receive nudges to step in. Journalists get contextual packets that help them ground their reporting. Social platforms are urged to slow the spread without silencing truth. This isn't about censorship, it's about creating a net so that small sparks don't become infernos. Imagine fewer headlines that begin with "overnight violence erupted" because the violence never ignited. And then there is the builder of new commons. Peace is not only the absence of war, it is the presence of shared space where needs are met fairly. AI can help design these commons, transparent systems for fair resource distribution, platforms where citizens can voice grievances without being drowned out by bots or propaganda, education systems that teach not only history, but empathy modeled through interactive dialogue. Picture an AI-powered forum where a farmer in one region and an urban worker in another realize their grievances rhyme, that both are being squeezed by the same economic pressure. That recognition can seed solidarity instead of division. But let me be clear, the same tools that could cool conflicts could also be twisted into surveillance, manipulation, or control. That is why guardrails must be as central as the technology itself. Transparency is essential. Every model used in peace work should be auditable by those it affects. Consent is non-negotiable. No community should have peace imposed on it without choosing the terms of mediation. And most sacred of all, non-weaponization. Peace models must never be co-opted into military strategy. Without these foundations, peace technology becomes just another arsenal. With them, it becomes the soil where trust can take root. And this is why knowledge changes power differently in peace. In war, power is often the capacity to destroy quickly. In peace, power is the capacity to preserve possibility, to create conditions where futures remain open. AI, used wisely, can give us this kind of power, the ability to notice fragile openings and protect them before they collapse. You may not be drafting treaties. You may not be in the rooms where borders are debated, but you are part of the global nervous system. You spread words, you share narratives, you co-regulate with every post, every conversation, every silence you choose to keep or break. What AI can do at scale, you can do in miniature. When you reframe someone's anger instead of reacting, you practice the mediator's mirror. When you notice an online argument spiraling and choose to add calm instead of fire, you practice the de-escalation net. When you invite a friend into dialogue across a difference, you practice the building of commons. And here's the truth. Cultures shift when enough individuals choose to practice differently. That's how peace grows, not as decree, but as habit. So let me leave you with a visualization. Imagine a vast table. On it, a map of the world but alive. Rivers move, headlines ripple, tiny lights pulse where human hearts are. Around the table sit people, some weary, some wary, some hopeful. In the center stands a transparent orb, glowing with AI patterns, not commanding, not dictating, but offering. One person leans forward and sees a possible path where famine can be averted. Another sees a way a corridor can be kept open. Another sees how to phrase a story that heals instead of harms. The orb does not decide, it reveals. The choice remains human. But now, the choice is visible. Peace requires imagination as much as infrastructure. Human minds alone, weighed by trauma and bias, often cannot hold enough perspectives to craft lasting solutions. AI is not here to erase our humanity. It is here to remind us of its full scope, to widen our field of vision until reconciliation feels less like a miracle and more like a practice. Until next time, may you see not only the fire but the water near it, not only the wound but the hand reaching for bandages, not only the pattern of war but the possibility of peace waiting to be chosen.